Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
In this video on Indic method of thesis construction, that is Tantra Yuktis, we will see part 4 and part 5, where influence of Tantra Yukti in Indian knowledge tradition, spatial, temporal and translingual, we will see in part 4, and in part 5 it will be summary, current status and conclusion. So now in this part 4 we will see how far and wide has been in terms of space and time Tantra Yuktis were utilized in Indian knowledge traditions, and also cutting across various linguistic traditions also how Tantra Yuktis have played an influential role, that we will see. We have been seeing that illustrations, definitions, examples are mostly from the Samskrita treatises. So it is true that for about 1700 years we find the references, textual references of utilization of Tantra Yuktis in Samskrita treatises across disciplines. So in public administration you have Kautilya Arthashastra using Tantra Yuktis. In philosophy, Nyaya Sutra Bhashya of Vatsyayana, Yukti Deepika, a Sankhya treatise, and Brahma Sutra Bhashya also utilizing one or two Yuktis. And in Ayurveda, in Samskrita treatises, Charaka Samhita, Sushruta Samhita, Ashtanga Sangraha, in all these Samskrita treatises cutting across disciplines, we find references to Tantra Yukti. And more, we can also see that in the Purana treatises also, like in Vishnu Dharmottara Purana, and also certain independent works are also there, like Tantra Yukti Vichara and also Tantra Yukti. And even in Tantra Shastra texts like Ishvara Pratyabhijna Vivriti Vimarshini, Swachhanda Tantra, Vamakeshwari Mata Vivarana, we find utilization of either complete or a few yuktis in the Samskrita linguistic tradition. Now, in this regard, one question that may arise, when these yuktis might have arisen, or what could be the origins? When we see a whole lot of literature, scholars are of different views. Satish Chandra Vidyabhushana says, Tantra Yukti, which literally signifies scientific arguments, was compiled possibly in the 6th century BCE. And while Professor Lele says that it may be post-Paninian, which is 5th century. Now this is with regard to Tantra Yuktis in Samskrita literature and also its origins in Samskrita tradition. As I mentioned, it is a translingual in nature. So in Tamil tradition also, Tamil is also one of the ancient languages of Bharat, and in that Hoyari, ancient Tamil tradition also, we find the self-same Tantra Yuktis being used for more than 1900 years. So the textual references are available in that regard. We can see Tolkapiyam, Yaperingalakarigai, Nannul, Maran Alankaram, Ilakkana Vilakkam, Swaminatham, all these texts are very authentic Tamil texts. They use Tantra Yuktis. Not only Tantra Yuktis, Tantra Gunas and Tantra Doshas are also found in the traditional ancient Tamil literature also. In the same way, A.K. Wardner, who has written a work on Indian Buddhism, he says, even in Pali tradition, there is influence of Tantra Yukti in the methodological devices like Neti Prakarana and Petakopadesha. Influence of Tantra Yukti is very much visible. So, hence, if Kautilya Arthashastra in Samskrita tradition, which is situated in the north of Bharat, then we see in the Tamil tradition, which is in south of Bharat, India, we find Tantra Yuktis being used. So not only is there a translingual utilization of Tantra Yuktis across spaces. And the work Tantra Yukti Vichara by Neelamegha Bhishak is from Kerala, South India. And Ishwara Pratyabhijna Vivriti Vimarshini Swachanda Tantra belong to Kashmir Shaivism. So hence this methodological device called set of devices called Tantra Yuktis are spatially also spread from Kautilya's work, which may have originated in Takshashila and in Kashmiri Shaivism, and in Tamil and Kerala literary works on Ayurveda and Tamil literature. So to north, from north till south, and temporally also we see more than 1700, 1900 years of utilization. And in Sanskrita, Tamil, Pali, we see the utilization of these methodological devices, which highlight the influence of Tantra Yukti spatially, temporally, and also translingually. So this brings us to the close of the fourth part, and we transition into the fifth part, where we will look back into the discussions thus far we have had on Tantra Yukti, a summary of this. And such an important, linguistically significant, and a very important theoretical tool or text construction tool, which has in the real sense an Indian knowledge system tool cutting across all linguistic tradition. What is the current status of utilization, and then what can be done in this regard? So that we will see in this final portion. So just as I mentioned, we see Tantra Yuktis as having thousands of years of utilization, contributing to methodological aspects of text construction, and then it is cutting across the languages, and then across disciplines even. We see the public administration, Ayurveda, philosophy, Tamil literature, and so cutting across disciplines and cutting across geographical location, we have seen the utilization of Tantra Yuktis. Not only that, Tantra Yuktis also seem to be comprehensive in the sense it contributes to the various dimensions of thesis construction, including contributions to highlights and hints or inputs on content of a thesis, structure of a thesis, and language of a thesis. And finally, Tantra Yuktis are a methodology which are intrinsic to the tradition. Means we are not looking, or we do not venture into, as has been the kind of unfortunate norm in the study of Indian knowledge systems. Sometimes with a Western lens, the Indian knowledge systems have been studied. Now, Tantra Yuktis, with all this potential, offers us an intrinsic tool to look into these traditional literature. So hence, intrinsic to the tradition, which understands the pulse of the tradition, such a methodology, such a thesis construction methodology, such a text construction and interpretation methodology is a Tantra Yuktis. This sums up the value potential of this doctrine, that is Tantra Yukti. Now, with all this importance, what is the extent to which Tantra Yuktis have been adapted, utilized, and employed in the academia long back, post-independence, when the academic activities happened in our country? So there, when we think from a decolonized mindset, long back, we should have included Tantra Yuktis as contributing to tools for a paper on research methodology. Means students pursuing their PhD, so they should have been introduced the tools on research methodology, and of course for evaluation for a PhD thesis and such other work on research on its content structure and language aspects, Tantra Yuktis could have been suggested as one of the tools. It could have been incorporated, and also for peer-reviewed research articles and journals, guidelines could have been derived from Tantra Yukti, which boasts of such a great tradition of utilization. But unfortunately, it is only slowly in the past decade that the attention of the scholars have been turned towards IKS, and especially in Tantra Yukti, only now some work of research has commenced, and slowly its potential is being realized in this very fortunate era of a revival of Indian knowledge systems. As we can see, these have not been the full potential of Tantra Yuktis in the context of IKS or in the context of general research arena and academia has not been utilized, because one is a lack of awareness about Tantra Yukti and generally IKS as such. As I mentioned, only now the revival is happening. This is the external reason. Internally also, there are some aspects with regard to Tantra Yukti which invites, we may call it as internal issues, but those issues is an invitation to researchers to come into the field of Tantra Yukti and work so that it can be put to use. Now, what are the issues internally with regard to Tantra Yuktis? As remarked by Jean-Luc Chevillard, who has worked on Tantra Yuktis, both Tamil and the Sanskrita Tantra Yuktis, he says, it's only by painstaking comparison of individual glosses of Tantra Yuktis and Tandira Uttis, that's how in Tamil it is called, making extended use of many other works, that one can hope to finally rediscover the lost bridges that have linked Tamil and Sanskrit technical literature for a long time. So, hence a lot of research work has to be done, and as very importantly highlighted by Chevillard, that Tantra Yukti also builds bridges among the various linguistic traditions in Bharat. So hence, for that integrity of the academic output or integration of Bharat as a culture and civilization in its intellectual dimension, it is very, very essential. It becomes very essential that these questions that remain about the intra-text, inter-text and inter-tradition. For example, for Charaka Samhita, there are which utilizes Tantra Yuktis, there are many commentaries. So each of the commentator interpret the Tantra Yuktis in different manner. Though it is the self-same text, various commentaries provide various shades of meanings. So those intra-text intricacies are to be noted down. And inter-text, for example, in the same Ayurveda tradition, Charaka Samhita also uses Tantra Yuktis, Sushruta Samhita also uses Tantra Yuktis. Their comparison is to be done, and then more insights are to be derived and they have to be harmonized. And inter-tradition, in the sense, Kautilya Arthashastra belongs to the Arthashastra tradition, and Charaka Samhita belongs to the Ayurveda tradition. Their comparison should be done. And interlingual comparison also needs to be done, in the sense, what are all the approaches to Tantra Yukti in Tamil tradition, what is there in Pali tradition, what is there in Sanskrita tradition. So all these inter-tradition, interlinguistic, inter-text and intra-text comparisons are to be done, and then this document, this Tantra Yukti has to be consolidated, systematized, and then has to be presented. So hence this is high time that the stakeholders, who are the stakeholders? Whoever is interested, whoever is focused on Indian knowledge systems is a stakeholder, and they should be aware of the potentials and value of Tantra Yuktis, and then time and resources for this has to be allocated. And then if not, means if the research has to happen to consolidate, harmonize intertext, intratext, etc. But still, in each of those texts, what has been mentioned, that is complete and systematic. For example, the entire videos that were presented were based on Kautilya Arthashastra. That is consistent, that is systematic itself. So in whichever tradition there is a full-fledged utilization, be it Ayurveda or be it in the Arthashastra tradition, when there is a full-blown treatment that has been, that can be, is ready-made and can be readily utilized in those respective traditions, or in whichever way they are available as such, they can still be utilized in various other walks of life. And of course, consolidation and harmonizing and furthermore research has to be done, but in the existing format also they are good to go, in the sense they can be directly applied even now in their current state also. And hence, so this highlights the work that has to be done towards a unified textual methodology for Indian knowledge system. Not only textual methodology, a research methodology. So when all the stakeholders are aware of this and take interest in this and invest time, effort and resource in this regard, a unified IKS methodology in which Tantra Yukti will also be a part. It is to be reiterated that Tantra Yukti does not provide solution to every other walk of life or every other walk of research in the academic scenario, but it provides all the fundamental details of the research in any field of knowledge with regard to content, structure and language. Having this as the core, the shell around it can be built in consultation with various texts, various traditions. And to finally complete, as Swami Vivekananda would say, the best of the West and the best of the East. The West has its own methodologies of research which has been developed. They can also be integrated along with Tantra Yukti so that a grand unified methodological device, a set of device can be created for the humanity as a whole to proceed to explore the various frontiers of knowledge in diverse disciplines. Towards that, Tantra Yuktis do play a valuable, critical and core role. So that Tantra Yuktis have been introduced. The salient features of Tantra Yuktis have thus been introduced through these set of videos. Thank you. Dhanyavad.